Hi everyone, welcome back. Laure here, and I'm here with Jankos. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling well.
Good. Well, how about last week's performances? Because you won the first game, you lost the other one, and I see you laughing a lot here. So talk me through your performance, because obviously you find it funny.
I mean, I don't find it so funny because I played really bad. It's just I was not feeling so well about my performance last week, and I was quite disappointed with myself, especially in the games against Schalke, because I think the game against Splyce went pretty well, and we played well as a team, but we also played well as individuals. And then I think against Schalke, for some reason, I was I wanted to do too many plays, or I wanted to try to make stuff happen, even though it shouldn't happen at that time in the game, because our draft was mainly about scaling and mainly about just playing safe and letting opponents do mistakes. But instead, I would force a lot, and sometimes I would make bad plays on bad tempo, or I would go in when I shouldn't go in. So I think I just played overall bad. I don't think that's new either, because I think I have for the last 2-3 weeks I have one game with which I made either I make a bad mistake, either the whole game is just not that good by me. So I'm trying to work on it, and I think this week will be better for sure. And yeah.
Yeah, well, you know what went wrong. You still have 3 weeks to make up for it. You have a tough schedule ahead, though. Which opponent are you most afraid of?
I think right now, I would say every opponent is good. Even H2k, that's 0-12, and we will play them soon. I think this team is, maybe they're probably worse than Misfits and Fnatic, but we still have to respect them and just think about the fact that they can win versus us, because every time I'm confident and I said that we'll win against that team, we always lose against that team. And last week happened the same. You were interviewing with me against Splyce, and then I said we'll win against Schalke, and we lost really hard. So I would say that we can lose against every team right now, but I think the most frightening is probably Fnatic or Misfits. And we are facing Fnatic tomorrow, and I'm really excited for the matchup, and I love the hype video, so...
Perfect. Well, more about today. You will be facing H2k. Now, nobody wants to lose against the last team in the standings, so is it something that you don't want to do? I mean, how do you feel going into this matchup?
I mean, I think for me, the best thing about our team facing H2k is that we have PerkZ, and I think Larssen, their new mid laner, will not be able to hold on against PerkZ, hold his own basically. I think Caps or PerkZ are just too good in Europe compared to any other mid laner, so that's why I think we have a huge edge over H2k. And if I don't do so well, obviously I'm planning to do well, but if I don't, just in case, I have PerkZ. PerkZ should have my back. And overall, I think also we play better macro games. So as long as we don't do stupid mistakes in the early game and H2k doesn't snowball the game, I think we'll win.
Well, you have good teammates to rely on, so that's good. Wish you good luck on today.
I mean, I really hope that teammates will rely on me as well. Yeah, thank you.
Of course you do. Of course you do. Well, good luck on this one. And now back to Vedius and Vedius for the game.
It's Smittyj time. It's Smittyj time. It's Smittyj time. It's Smittyj time. Let's go.
Let's go. League of Legends, H2k up against G2 to start us off, and the stakes are high in this game.
Yes, they certainly are. Well, for G2 they are anyway, because they've got a bit of a tough schedule going up ahead after today's game, with Fnatic coming up tomorrow and Misfits going up against next week. So they do not want to drop a game versus H2k, but on top of that, they don't want to be the only team to lose against so far the winless H2k.
Have to remember though, the H2k lineup has changed. Larssen has been brought into the squad, a stalwart of the Challenger Series, playing with NIP in the EU Masters just a few months ago, and before that with Wind and Rain in the Challenger Series Summer last split. So there is a little bit of change on the horizon for H2k.
Yeah, we'll see how that affects the lineup and what they're able to bring out today. Larssen, typically he played a lot of control mages, things like the Casio, the Corki, and Nivea is something he played a lot during the European Masters. And we'll see if they decide to continue on with that style. We have seen a couple more control mages in recent weeks, but also got to make a note that Selfie is unfortunately unable to play due to a medical emergency, which is why Larssen is currently in the roster.
And veteran back on stage though, so very thankful to see him well once again. G2 have got rid of the Nocturne themselves alongside Kindred and the Rise, and it's Yasuo, Orianna, and Heimerdinger bans from H2k, which means Aatrox and Taliyah both still up.
Yeah, so H2k going with the strategy of leave all the OPs open, they can only pick one, and we'll get ourselves two.
We've lost every time we banned them in the past. Let's try not banning them this time.
Yeah, so they could get their hands on the Aatrox themselves. Nocturne has been taken off the board from G2, so you could argue, oh, they don't get as strong of a jungler, but still, if I could get my hands on Aatrox in this current meta, even after the nerfs, many pros consider him to be a very strong laner, able to play around and get a lot of leads. The question is, do H2k themselves feel confident playing around that champion?
No, they're going to pick Zilean instead. Smittyj locks that one in for H2k, and now Caedrel will look perhaps towards that Aatrox pick. Zoe still on the cards here as well, a very strong pick in the current meta.
So I saw them speaking to the ref, and I just wonder if this was an intentional lock-in. Based on the fact it was very uncommon to see a Zilean first pick. I'm just waiting to hear on what the feedback is from the producers.
I do have feedback from our producers. We're going to restart Champion Select because of an issue with the client itself. So we're going to jump on out, and then we'll jump back in just a second. The Zilean surprised me. I tried to play it off as if it was a pick that could have happened, but you don't usually see a first pick Zilean.
It did feel a little unconventional. So draft will be quickly restarted, and yeah, we'll continue. So the fact that Jankos is once again on the Taliyah is pretty good for G2. Last week when they went up against Splice, Jankos did give away first blood, but at the same time, he then repeatedly ganked up towards the top side of the map, and he found a lot of kills. Odoamne had a miserable time in that matchup, and their whole intent was to just play through the top lane, get their carries ahead, and basically just enable the two carries in Wunder and PerkZ rather. And Jankos had a phenomenal game on his Taliyah.
Yeah, he did 10 KDA, a huge amount of damage coming out from him as well. We do have a little bit more information for everyone at home. The same picks and bans will be enforced up until the Zilean pick, so we will have the Taliyah as the first pick. We'll have the same bans as well, which means Aatrox and Zoe will be available for H2k if they do want it when we jump back into the lobby. It looks like that is getting set up right away for us now. And it was intriguing to me that H2k decided they wanted to get rid of the Orianna themselves when we have seen Larssen in the Challenger Series and in the European Masters play those control mages. There are still a lot left on the cards. Things like Azir we've seen cropping up in a couple of places.
So I think the thing about it is what we've noticed for G2 is they try to get their bot lane a comfort bot lane, something that's kind of relatively safe and either is an even matchup or a favorable one. And by banning away the Orianna, it's a safe blind that G2 can't resort to later on into the draft. So they're doing their best, H2k, to give Larssen the most favorable matchup possible. You know that PerkZ is one of the big superstars on this roster, and given that Larssen is fresh to the LCS stage, you want to kind of make his laning experience as optimal as possible.
It's a bit of a baptism by fire for Larssen having to play up against PerkZ. We are going to jump back into picks and bans, same picks up to the Taliyah, which will be first picked by G2, and then H2k can resume the usual randomness / planned nature of picks and bans.
Yep, so we know the first pick is the Taliyah. You would imagine that H2k would look to grab themselves the Aatrox as well. So they ban away the Heimer, the Orianna, and the Yasuo was the final one. So you can see a lot of focus on PerkZ and just trying to take him off, ideally just a couple of strong picks that exist in the current meta. Zoe is still available, remember, so H2k, they could look to get themselves both the Aatrox and the Zoe themselves right now.
That would be where I would go, but instead they pick the Swain, a massive flex pick at the moment. On 8.14, which is the patch we're still playing on. I know 8.15 is live, and an incredible patch is 8.15. A lot has changed, but we have to wait for next week before we can see those changes come out. Looks like it's going to be Swain Trundle, which means to me, I expect the Swain to go mid, because that combination with a Trundle can be very impactful.
I have seen Swain picked into Zoe, and I've seen it picked into Aatrox. So I guess H2k are just kind of looking to put that matchup into wherever they think is the best matchup for it.
Yep.
But for G2, they kind of have the pick of the litter right now. Do they even want to prioritize the Zoe? They've very often referred to how much they like the Tahm Kench pick, the amount of peel that it can provide, the amount of safety. And we talked about how their bottom lane tends to play much more on the defensive, more on the either even or favorable matchup. So if you get that Tahm Kench, it means that not only can you soak up a lot of ganks, which is something that G2 often have to deal with, but it allows you to play a little bit more of a defensive style of lane. Interestingly, we are seeing G2 draft something a little unique.
Yeah, that's a very defensive bottom lane in the Ashe and the Tahm Kench, but the Ashe is a pick.
Yeah, it's the Ashe.
Have not seen that much at all.
Well, it's Hjärnan playing an AD carry that kind of surprises me because, no disrespect to Hjärnan, we've seen him have good AD carries performances in the past, but one of the big criticisms that he had last split was relative to a lot of the other top AD carries, he couldn't really quite match up. And coming into this meta, the fact that he could play so many mages in the bot side really enabled him and kind of unlocked him. Things like the Heimerdinger, one of his big picks, they found a lot of success with, and now he's moving back onto AD carries. Ashe still very utility focused, a little bit more on the scaling edge, but she is known for having a solid laning phase due to the amount of poke and harassment that she can get with her volley.
Tiny thing I want to chuck out there is PerkZ is actually the more adept marksman player if you look at who has played more marksman this split. None for Hjärnan. PerkZ has played 3 Lucian games, 2 Kai'Sa games. If PerkZ takes this mid, you never know. It could be a possibility, or maybe even take it down towards the bottom lane. We have more bans coming out from H2k, though. Azir and Cassio removed, and G2 get rid of the Camille.
Yeah, so PerkZ really trying to be shut down from the side of H2k. Vladimir and Swain can all be flexed into the middle lane. They kind of have the pick of the litter right now. You would assume that the Trundle is going to go into the jungle. Surprises me that they would look to pick it so early on in the draft, but I guess given that they are aware of the Taliyah going into the jungle, they're fine with that matchup. H2k, the things that they're lacking right now are a bit of engage. They have a lot of team fight damage with the Swain and the Vladimir, but they have no way to actually start these fights off. And it looks like that we're seeing a bit of a shift up with the Trundle actually moving down into the support position with the Graves being put into the jungle. So this will mean that an engage tool is still lacking from the side of H2k, but they're certainly making up for it in terms of damage.
Just need to find where that engage is going to come from, because if you can find a good multi-man knockup, multi-man CC, then the Vladimir follow-up seems very impactful, but it is going to be Hjärnan on the Ashe because Leblanc is locked in for PerkZ.
You talked about trial by fire. Well, Leblanc is probably the hottest mid laner you could pick into that one. Assassin, so much damage in the early game, a huge amount of pressure going to be applied to the new mid laner for H2k and Larssen. Definitely an exciting pick to see PerkZ back on.
Possibility of the Swain Trundle bottom lane here because Malphite is the pick from Smittyj up towards the top side. Have seen this from him before. Obviously a 0% win rate on that champion this split.
We talked about engage. Well, H2k have got it right now with this Malphite up in the top lane. You have his ultimate to start off fights. You have huge amounts of follow-up with the Vladimir ulti and the Swain as well. And if you still feel like you're lacking damage, the Graves is going to be there to follow up too. He's going to have a good clear speed in the early game and should be able to match the Taliyah, but it's these mid to late game fights that H2k are really going to look to force. And not only that, I quite like Malphite into Gnar. We can talk a little bit more about it when we get into game, but over in the LCK, we've seen a lot of Malphites as an answer to Jace, who fulfills a very similar role to what Gnar does during the laning.
We will come back to that as we get on into the game. On the other side of the rift, we have G2. We talked about H2k, how they want to force these mid to late game team fights. G2 have a lot of pick potential with a Taliyah, with a Leblanc, and with an Ashe, and the safety they wanted in that bottom lane.
They also have a lot of opportunities to split push, and they have a huge amount of globals. And the one thing that G2 did exceptionally well last week against Splice was use the Taliyah ulti and the Tahm Kench ulti to move around the map and find these picks that they're going to be looking for this comp.
Trial by fire for Larssen. So new, we couldn't even get his portrait in time for our graphics. PerkZ is the man he will face up into, and you can see the face of a killer there from G2's PerkZ. Needs to show that this G2 team is still one of the top 4 teams in Europe. We heard on the analyst desk after the Schalke game, perhaps Schalke are vying for that 3rd spot. G2 have to prove they belong amongst the top dogs.
Sorry, you caught me as I was taking a swig of water.
That's
but
okay.
G2 versus
No
H2k.
one would have known until you talked about it, Vedius.
It's the Deficio approach. Tell people that the
Why you
play-by-play made the mistake.
It was someone else's fault. That is very much the Deficio approach.
So, in this early game, what are we looking at? G2 setting up for a bit of an invade. You can see the positioning of PerkZ just behind Jankos, acting as that bit of safety. We heard in the interview earlier on about how Jankos feels PerkZ has got his back. Well, he does quite literally right now. And you got to remember, early on, champions like Leblanc and Taliyah and Gnar, very, very strong. The W does a huge amount of damage, but you also have things like the chain from her E. You also have the Taliyah Q because it hits 5 times. Funnily enough, it really hurts. And then Gnar, because he has that consistent boomerang that he throws out, you get the cooldown reduction, the slow, very potent and very effective in the early game. So they want to try and utilize some of these skills, see if they can punish H2k.
Smittyj will face check into Jankos. Wunder there on the back line as well, just in case they need a little bit more protection. But it does look like 3 members of G2 are going to push in to try and steal away this red.
So we can also see Promisq coming in to the jungle. H2k trying to turn this into a numbers advantage. All 5 are in fact here from the side of H2k.
Have to be very cautious if you're G2. Jankos going to be the one to step up, the never move, pull back, and Jankos flashes away, but there's no place to go. First blood to H2k.
Jankos once again getting caught out, as we have seen over the last few weeks. Face checks a brush that has 3 members of H2k lying in wait, and Sheriff has his teleport, so he's not going to lose really that much. He's going to pick up that first blood, come back, I believe, with a Dark Seal as well. H2k kicking off this game with a flying start.
And what a start it is for Larssen as well. That will relieve some of the nerves for him in the mid lane. We've got a big tweet from him here saying he's playing for H2k this weekend in the LCS while Selfwood gets better, looking to stop the 0-18 mean, and super excited to play against an idol like G2 PerkZ in my LCS debut. Getting an assist early on will definitely help him. His jungler now has pressure to go into the G2 jungle as well, so it's a superb start for H2k.
It certainly is. Caedrel utilizing the early pressure advantage that he does have to try and get a bit of a counter jungle off. But G2, given that they were able to push the wave initially down towards the bot side, have given them access over towards the river. They now have control of that along with vision on the enemy blue. So they might be able to do something with that if they can keep pressure up towards the bot. But when I look at this bot, I also want to go back to talking about this top lane, because we've seen a lot of early game action already from the side of G2 and H2k, but this matchup is not one that we commonly seen. We haven't really seen a lot in Europe. But as we mentioned over in the LCK, Malphite has been coming out a lot against champions like Jace, because in the laning phase, he offers a lot of harassment, and he's a pain in the backside to deal with. But the thing about Malphite is he's just stacked with armor. Passively, he gets armor from his W. It gets even bigger when the shield is available too. And so basically, he can just mitigate a lot of the poke. And when you have 6, because of how squishy champions like Jace and Gnar are, you actually have an essence of kill pressure in the 1v1, but also almost certainly when you have a supporting jungler there too. So you pair the Graves up with a level 6 Malphite, there is a lot of threat up towards the top side. So not that surprising of a pick, but certainly one that can work out nicely, assuming that you're willing to play a little bit more reserve.
Something Wunder will have to be well aware of in that top lane when we get around to those level 6 marks. Jankos still only level 2 on this Taliyah. Not the start he would have wanted, not what we saw from him last week against Splice either. And across the board, H2k are just in a very good position. 600 gold ahead. They have a lead in the mid lane. 2 CS up. Oh, 3 now. Larssen, the prodigal son, the rookie extraordinaire.
You do like making these these grandiose statements, don't you, Medic? His first game in the LCS, already he is a prodigy.
He's got 3 CS more
than PerkZ.
Than the idol.
Amazing. This Vladimir, ooh, we have to be careful though in the bot lane. Of course, the safety of the Tahm Kench. But yeah, Vladimir into Leblanc, quite a unique matchup, also one that we don't commonly see. The thing about Leblanc is she loves to poke you in lane. She throws out her Q, often follows it up with a W combo. If she can land the chains, that's extra bonus. But it's so easy to proc the electrocute, and also just easy to lock down her targets in her laning phase, that she can just generate a lot of pressure and often just chunk you out, allowing her to roam around the map and find opportunities. But the great thing about Vlad is he has a huge amount of sustain. That's just kind of in his nature. And while he does have long cooldown windows that you can look to abuse, for the most part with the Doran Shield, he can just play relatively safe and he can farm up pretty nicely. And once he gets his first back and he gets a couple extra health pots, he gets a bit of health built under his belt, then the kill pressure that Leblanc has is heavily mitigated. So the way in which PerkZ plays this is he has to constantly play aggro. He has to look to get as much chip damage onto Larssen so that his focus is on trying to stay healthy rather than pressuring the lane. And this gives PerkZ the freedom to roam around the map. and he has to group up with Jankos and look for opportunities in the side lanes if G2 want to find an early game lead.
We've talked about that as one of G2's main strategies throughout the last few weeks as well. PerkZ and Jankos, they have to duo, they have to work together. Wunder this game has a little bit more carry potential on the Gnar than he would have had on something like the Mundo, and the bot lane is just safe. Yes, you've got the engage from the Ashe arrow, but apart from that, it's much more just about being safe in the lane, pushing it up, and then being able to join the team later on.
Yeah, and you got to remember that for G2 with the Leblanc, you're very much relying on early scaling, but we look at a gank in the top lane.
Smittyj's going to use the Unstoppable Force straight onto the face of Jankos, and Jankos does not have the damage yet. That is the Malphite ultimate down, so...
He also missed.
Yeah, I mean, I was being kind.
Well, also got to be true. Jankos did miss the W. No need to force the flash from Smittyj. And the ultimate, as you rightly said, was whiffed.
Jankos really struggling in the beginning of this game. We talked about his performances last week. It's a polar opposite performance between both games. Splice game, incredible. Taliyah, he's a god, he's a demon, he's a monster. Schalke game, he's inting a lot of the time.
Yes. Quite right. And I'd love to talk a little bit more about Jankos, but we've got to keep our eyes on this bot lane matchup.
Wadid's going to be able to get the suppression onto Promisq. Here comes the Never Move and the Vision of Empire as well. Hjärnan having to run away. Promisq just trying to trade in, but Sheriff maybe overstepped here because Jankos is on his way down as well, and now G2 will capitalize in the bottom lane.
So while Jankos can't find kills in the top lane, he can steal a couple in the bottom after Hjärnan and Wadid set that up beautifully, finding a successful 2 versus 2 and netting themselves a couple of early kills will get that gold lead back in their favor.
Good stuff from them. The CC potential you do get out from a Tahm, Kench, and an Ashe. Slow potential as well. Wunder going to trade up here in the top side, but remember, Caedrel's on his way. The knock into the wall with the Gnar. Wunder and do what he can. Smittyj flashes away. No ult on him, remember, but Caedrel comes in from the side as well. A lot of damage coming down. Wunder will escape for now.
Ooh, Wunder very close to getting a kill onto Smittyj there. If Caedrel hadn't shown up, that would have likely resulted in Smittyj's death. But Caedrel, he forced the flash to get Wunder to flash, ends up being 2 for 1, and Wunder ends up coming out on top. But that's not slowing Caedrel down. He's still looking to invade, seeing a couple of opportunities. PerkZ now needs to be careful.
So be very cautious because Larssen's on his way as well, but PerkZ can always just jump across the wall, end of the line. Back onto Caedrel! Holy hell, that was a lot of damage. PerkZ is going to pay for it with his life. He'll get taken out with a Hemo Plague. Larssen answers with a kill, but PerkZ shows exactly what he can do.
Ooh, well played there from PerkZ, turning what could have been a dire situation around and finding himself a very quick kill onto Caedrel. Larssen was able to land the ultimate, which meant that he ended up trading 1 for 1 overall. He's going to be pretty happy about that, but damn, that's that early game damage we were talking about with Leblanc. She has that pressure, and she utilized it perfectly here.
Just felt like it came from nowhere. PerkZ was on the run, down to about half HP, and then he's like, oh, hello, Caedrel. I'm going to chunk you out and take you down.
Yep, maxing the W. You have the Q, the W, the electrocute proc, lands the chain as well. Combine that with Ignite. That is everything. Everything coming out.
Basically, if you use all of your abilities,
yes, but it's
do
actually
a lot of damage.
It's really important on LeBlanc that you land almost everything. Otherwise, you're not going to get that one shot. And he does pull it off, along with the steal there from Jankos. But yeah, well played from PerkZ. Larssen did also have to use his flash, but he's pretty much spent the most of this laning phase underneath his turret, so he's probably not going to be too concerned about that.
He's lost that CS lead. It's no longer the promising rookie we once saw him as.
He could.
No, he's lost it. He's 10 CS down.
He's dead to you now, is he?
That's 1/7 of the CS that he has got already behind PerkZ. But what I want to talk about is we glossed over Jankos stealing away that blue buff. He was 2 levels behind at the start of this game, and now because of PerkZ and because of roams like this, he is able just to join the fight with the Weaver's Wall. Larssen and Caedrel versus PerkZ and Jankos. H2k versus G2, and it's G2 who are winning. Larssen getting chased out by Wadid and Hjärnan as well. Gobbled up into the belly. That kind of tasted good, but it tastes good on the tongue of PerkZ. 2 kills to him.
So typically you don't expect the Tahm Kench to roam up towards the mid lane, but G2 are all about playing around the mid lane assassin PerkZ on Leblanc. 3-1-0 right now. This early game is going exactly the way they want it, and they're looking for more.
Promisq has the flash, but it's going to get rooted up before he can use it. Jump back from PerkZ to get him to safety. But it's just PerkZ is all over the map. It's what you said you wanted, Vedius. You wanted him to roam, you wanted him to get pressure.
Yeah, but the
that's
funny
exactly
thing is,
what he's doing.
They're just roaming to him. Jankos used his ulti to get to
that
PerkZ.
helps as well.
And then Wadid used his ulti to get to PerkZ. I guess that's definitely one way of using it, but look at your minimap right now. Ideally from the vision of G2, note that in the bot lane, they're already pushed up that wave and are moving up through the river, which is fully in their control. Jankos ults in, the Tahm Kench cuts off the escape route of Larssen, and he's forced to use his pool super early because of the arrow that had come in before the ulti from Wadid. The fact that so many members of G2 are playing around PerkZ is definitely a way in which G2 have not played in recent weeks.
Great stuff from G2 at the start, and now H2k need to find an answer from somewhere, whether it be Larssen or even Smittyj in the top lane. You have that teamfight composition. You need to scale up just a little bit more at the moment. You look at it, not even a completed item on them apart from Caedrel, but if they can get to 2-3 items, if they can hold on to only this 2,000 gold deficit, maybe H2k can find a teamfight that wins them this game.
Yeah, so that's kind of what they're relying on right now. Ideally, when you're playing up against a Leblanc, you want her to just not snowball in the early... I did hear an Ashe arrow. Oh, maybe it was just a volley, but you ideally want her to not snowball, and if she does start to snowball, you just want to slow the game down as much as possible, because she just starts to fall off in the late game. When the enemy team starts grouping up, her ability to just one-shot a target becomes much harder, because remember, when she W's in, there's a small delay before she can jump back, and that's prime opportunity for Sheriff to land a root, for Malphite to land an ultimate, and locking her down in these late game fights becomes a lot easier, rather than in the mid game when everyone's a lot more spread out. So, as you rightly said, H2k much more reliant now on these late game team fights, Smittyj landing a good ulti, and then the follow-up with players like Larssen and Ashe.
G2, on the other hand, will be pretty happy with where they are now, especially after their slow start, 12 minutes in. 2,000 gold ahead. You've got Luden's Echo completed on PerkZ as well. You can always go for these fights around the buffs. That's what they've been doing. They've been catching Caedrel out when he goes for his buffs, when he goes for any control of his own jungle. And PerkZ just goes in for the chase. Caedrel answers with some damage, but Jankos comes in to secure that kill.
So note how PerkZ pushes in mids, tells Jankos we can invade, the enemy red buff is alive, let's go get it. That's exactly what they're able to do. You said it earlier, we talked about it a lot. We wanted to see PerkZ and Jankos grouping up, finding these picks. They're pulling it off beautifully so far in this game.
And just CS leads across the board for G2, 20 in the top lane, 10 in the mid lane, alongside a hefty gold lead, about 1,000 gold ahead for PerkZ over Larssen at the moment, and a CS lead in the bottom as well. H2k trying to do what they can, force a play away from PerkZ down towards this bottom side, but PerkZ is well on his way.
So we saw a couple of pings out from G2 saying that there is a ward on that entrance, so got to be careful, PerkZ. You're probably going to get spotted out, but it was enough to force Larssen away, who wanted to try and play towards the spot tower. Hjärnan and Wadid doing what they've done so much throughout the regular season, which is just tank ganks, just survive, make sure that they're not a detriment to their team, and so far they've been doing an excellent job, even finding themselves 2 versus 2 kill, if Jankos hadn't come along and stolen one. But these guys have been playing exceptionally well. The return to marksman is definitely a cool one to see, and it looks like the Hjärnan is going for an early Blade of the Ruin King on this Ashe. No Storm Razors, no early item spikes, but the Blade of the Ruin King still a nice pickup.
So what's the difference between those? Because Blade of the Ruin King, I've always thought of as more for tank builds, and Storm Razor more for burst builds across the board.
Well, I mean, the thing about Blade of the Ruin King is it gives you a couple of different alternatives. Number one is self-peel. When you kind of look at this composition, there's a lot of going forward, and ooh, PerkZ.
Caedrel flashed!
Why did he flash?
When you face an idol, sometimes you have to flash away.
What? Okay.
It made a lot of sense.
I never want you to meet an idol if the first thing you're going to do is flash him, but looking at it from the side of G2, I think that the reason why you'd go Blade of the Ruin King is Tahm Kench is good peel. Yes, that's very true. And he's going to be looking to defend the backline, but Ashe, when there's this much hard engage and there's this much team fighting, you kind of want the lifesteal, you want the extra bonus movement speed that you get from the active of Blade of the Ruin King, and it also just synergizes nice with her kit, where getting that early attack speed with a bit of attack damage, and she stacks up that focus, means that she's able to output a lot of damage. So I think in this setup, it's perfect.
As we start to see those first items completed for G2, they are in a very sound spot. 15 minutes in, they've got that Rift Herald in their back pocket as well. Could use it, well, basically in any lane, because all the towers still remain up for the moment.
The thing is that Matt and Drake is still available. Surprising that G2 haven't looked to take it a little bit earlier, given the priority that they have had around the bot side of the map. But I guess their focus has been on trying to just invade, deny Caedrel, and steal away these camps. So I feel like that G2, they'll look to take the Matt and Drake before they try and use that Rift Herald. Getting that extra bit of sieging power from the Matt and Drake as well will offer a lot of value. And I just want them to use the strength of Leblanc at this point in the game as well. She's already completed the Luden's Echo, does have the Orb of Death, that I like to call it because of how much early magic penetration that it gives you.
I'm glad you're not on the item naming team, I'll be honest. Here comes the Orb of Death!
Yeah, the Orb of Death. And I think that right now G2's in a perfect position to start forcing fights. Ashe, Arrow, LeBlanc, mobility, and chains. The amount of globals that you have too. Everything looks good, but instead their eyes seem to be more towards the top side of the map.
The tower is very low up towards
That's
the top
fair.
side, so Wunder can just take that down. He's got the Wit's End for the extra attack speed and the magic resist that it provides to you. Always good into a Malphite, because he does do a huge amount of magic damage with his rocky thing, the Q, that I've gotten the name of.
Isn't it Seismic something?
Seismic spinner.
Bowl?
Shard. Shard, there we go.
Shard, there we go.
Seismic Shard.
What's his W though?
Brutal Strikes?
You know you have a client, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Brutal Strikes.
You can't open it.
Yeah, but I like to test myself, Betty.
Well, I don't know the answer. The QWER is what
Brutal
I call
Strikes,
them.
let's go. What's the E?
Congratulations. E, Slammy Groundy.
Yeah, Ground Slam. Very good stuff, Vedius. There is the Rift Herald used towards the mid lane. No fight yet from G2. Wadid and Hjärnan coming up here as well, but they can just catch out Promisq. There's the arrow to the face, and Promisq has to flash away. Could have expected that one to happen. Mid lane tower is going to fall to Herald and its friends, and G2 actually just group up as 3. Maybe even look down towards the bottom side as a 5-man squad.
So they started top, they took down mid, and now they can just use their numbers to lock down bot lane.
Weaver's Wall, no flash on Promisq, and Jankos and the crew come in to say hello. They force Sheriff from Promisq back. Smittyj has the unstoppable force. Perhaps this is the fight that H2k wanted, but they cannot quite find the engage, and this will be the 3rd tower of the game for G2.
Very clean map movements here from
Oh,
G2.
PerkZ straight onto the base of Caedrel, even chases him, the ignite! Tick, tick, boom! PerkZ gets Caedrel!
And G2 find themselves another successful pick. The map has been opened wide, and they're utilizing the strength of this LeBlanc to find themselves another kill and keep the pressure up onto H2k. Very much struggling right now. Unfortunately, Larssen not having his best debut, hasn't been able to show much, but again, we're still looking at these team fights in the later stages. The question is, will G2 even allow H2k to get to that point?
There's a 6,000 gold lead for G2 right now. If they do not close out the game relatively rapidly from here, I think that they are nowhere near in contention for the top 3 spot we talked about before.
Well, let's look back at how G2 set up this collapse. Remember that they had top wave pushing in, so you can see on your mini-map that Malphite forced to go and answer that wave. He TVs in to not really an optimal ward, but he can't really come in from behind because he knows he won't have the follow-up. They used the Rift Herald mid as well, so you can see that pressure was generated there. And basically it was 5 versus 2, and H2k were forced to retreat. Now, while they didn't find any kills, they found another tower, but look at Smittyj. It looks like that he's gonna die.
No, unstoppable force into the root. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
you were right. Yeah, he's gonna die. That was well predicted, Vedius.
Yeah, it wasn't hard. I played enough LeBlanc to know when someone gonna die. And he is 5-1-1 right now.
Wait, why don't they die in our games then when you play LeBlanc?
I don't play LeBlanc in our games because I have the infamous LeBlanc curse where I go 13-4 and still lose because the game takes too long to end.
It's better than the Nocturne curse you seem to have where you go 0-10 and we lose the game.
Nah, I think you misrepresent my Nocturne. I don't ever get below 12 kills. Anyway, G2, speaking of kills, currently 8-2 in their favor right now. Finally secured themselves the Man and Drake. Baron spawns in about a minute, but they don't actually have to take it. They can use it as a means to find more picks and look for more kills, but actually starting it off, their Baron isn't the fastest. Ashe is pretty good, but they don't need to run that risk. They don't want to group up in a narrow space where their resistances are reduced and H2k are in a position where they could actually team fight and come back.
Yeah, we said split push is a very viable opportunity, an option for G2 here. PerkZ is so far ahead, he can 1v1 anyone, probably 2v1 most of the players on H2k. Wunder now has Black Cleaver and Wit's End, so he'll shred through anyone that he's facing up against as well. So wouldn't be surprised if we see G2 go for 1-3-1 just for a little while, with the possibility of a Jankos roam and Wadid, those big key global ultimates for G2 going to play a big part in this split push composition.
Is not aware that there are 3 members of H2k on the other side of the wall. He will be there once he drops the ward. Looking at the setup of the map right now, very little vision push deep from the side of G2. That's because they don't have control over the waves just yet. They'll gain mid priority and top priority as PerkZ looks for more damage. And then they'll use this pressure to just slowly advance their vision. They'll likely dot this ward around the Baron area, and as we said, they don't necessarily use the Baron pressure to start the Baron, mainly just to look for more picks, have more vision control, and then catch H2k as they're like, oh, are they starting the Baron? Are they actually taking it? And then looking for those extra moves.
PerkZ face check straight into them, but H2k realize they probably can't win that fight anyway. You can see tomorrow match of the week is G2 up against Fnatic, and we should talk about G2's upcoming schedule at some point as well, because they are not in the easiest of shape. They've got some pretty hard matchups left. They are actually starting a fight here in the mid lane as well. Wadid's going to jump away, and I think G2 should be able to escape. Larssen's still on the chase, never move flash away from, but as I said, G2 going to keep fighting in the mid lane. Caedrel ammo hits onto the face of Larssen. He's going to be safe for the time being, and H2k will just back away for the moment.
While this small skirmish is happening in mid, you can see that Wunder pressuring down towards the bot lane. PerkZ very quickly roams over as well, and it will result in a tower going in favor of G2 once again. And I know, Medic, you wanted to talk a lot about their strength of schedule. We can still do it. Now the game will slow down. A lot of G2 members will reset. And the important games to note are the Fnatic, G2, and Vitality games. Because remember...
Well, they're all G2 games.
Well, the G2 is 8-4, and they have a realistic potential of going 3-3. And that's a scary thought for G2. They still have a lot of difficult matchups left throughout the regular season, and this is kind of where that debate comes from. Are they the third best team? And you kind of wanted to have a good performance against H2k. You didn't want to show any signs of weakness, and the fact that PerkZ is 5-1-1 on Leblanc, Jankos after a bad start has been able to find a way back in, the bot lane successfully 2v2 killing, you can confidently say that G2 looking pretty solid going into their game tomorrow.
I agree with the fact they look solid, however, I think back to the level 1, I think back to the early game and how H2k did actually have an advantage. And when you look at how Fnatic have been utilizing level 1 plays in the last few weeks, I worry a bit for G2, because if they give Fnatic that sort of advantage at level 1, Fnatic should be able to snowball the game away.
It's very true. Jankos will definitely be one of the big players to watch in tomorrow's matchup, and that will be game 4, I believe. So you'll definitely want to tune into that one.
It's got a POV stream as well. Ooh, I hear someone does some really good breakdown.
I believe that it is... I don't know if it's been decided yet.
It's Jankos, I believe.
Okay, it's Jankos. Yeah. Jankos, yeah. So it's definitely a POV that you're going to want to check out. Now G2, utilizing their pressure in the lanes to look for a couple of deep vision.
We did push it a little bit far forward, but Larssen's going to have to pop the Sanguine Pool up towards the top side. You can see PerkZ just jumping onto that back line. Wunder in the midst of them all as well. He flashes from Smittyj's unstoppable force. Great play from the Gnar to keep himself safe. Building up that rage bar as well, almost towards Mega. PerkZ can come down and join the fight here. Wunder looking for the jump in. The 5-man Gnar is a possibility. Now it would be 4, of course, as H2k back away. First tower down. H2k push back to their inhibitor. And G2 settle with that for now.
And just look at how the mini-map is set up. This is so important for you guys at home in terms of how to utilize map pressure, because G2 have all 3 minion waves pushed, and they're still forcing H2k to group up as 5. The fact that they're able to so consistently do this is what allows them to stay at the top of the tables, and it's what top teams need to be able to do. It's all well and good being good at the game, but being able to manage your minion waves, properly assign laners to the correct places, and utilize their strengths to keep these waves pushed, allows you to get deep vision. And at around 23 minutes, when you're still kind of in that mid to late game transition, is when you need to be utilizing these power spikes. So good, a lot of props to G2 showing that they do possess those fundamentals and knowing how to control the waves and those lane assignments.
Because of those assignments, they are 8,000 gold ahead. Props to H2k as well, though they haven't totally collapsed in this game. Still always that possibility of a big team fight. You have a Vladimir at 2 items. You've got the Malphite building up a bit of tankiness. You've got 2 items on your Swain as well. So maybe if they can find a 4v5 or some sort of pick, they can do some work. But Promisq, that's a lot of chunk damage coming out from PerkZ at the moment.
PerkZ showing off his magic tricks where he looks to make a troll disappear. He almost came about it, but it did force Promisq away. Didn't quite get the vision down that he would have liked. And now he is a flashless Trundle, which PerkZ will be more than happy to punish later on. Here comes the Ashe arrow.
Weaver's wall hits onto Smittyj. Flash from Sheriff as well. Still the unstoppable force is available from Smitty here. If they want to try and turn it back around, he's knocked in. There's the unstoppable force, but they don't quite have the damage to follow up. Teleport coming in from Wunder to join the back of this fight. Sheriff on the chase, exhausted straight away. Caedrel there. Larssen looking for the flank. H2k have to do something right now because PerkZ is playing the Magician and trying to make Promisq disappear. There's Wunder with the Gnar into the wall. Larssen, Hemo playing only on one. Wunder will fall as well, but PerkZ jumps in once again. Caedrel, goodbye, my son. PerkZ is unstoppable.
G2 find themselves 3 quick kills onto H2k. Wunder kind of got left out to die right there, but it still resulted in a big team fight win. That's the kind of situation that H2k were looking for, but they were not in the proper setup. Larssen wasn't there. They didn't chain their ultis and set up together. Smittyj got chunked out right at the start of the fight, and G2 kind of got everything that they wanted, enabling PerkZ to constantly dash in and out, utilize his damage onto the key members, and threaten H2k into a dire situation. Look at the minimap again. You can see Vladimir up in the top lane. H2k gets engaged on. He's saving his ulti to the last second. He throws it out, but there's no follow-up. He ends up dropping. Hjärnan and Jankos do get very low, and then with the TP in from Wunder, Larssen's still not in this fight. More than enough damage from PerkZ and Wunder. I feel like they didn't have to leave Wunder, but I guess they were respecting the flank from Larssen and they didn't want to run the risk of getting killed. And then on the back end, the Ignite, the Q, plus the Luden's proc was more than enough to allow PerkZ to find a kill onto Caedrel. So good team fight there from G2. H2k just not, once again, finding that optimal setup.
Every time we see a team fight happen in this game, it's G2 initiating, and that's the problem for H2k, because Smittyj was caught out there. It meant he had to use his ultimate, because otherwise he was going to die, and you just don't have that optimal setup we were talking about. Larssen is totally, just his health bar disappears as soon as PerkZ jumps in, looking for a little bit more damage. Sigil into the Sanguine Pool from Larssen keeps him safe for the moment, but he's forced back. He'll have to recall.
Now, there's no teleport on Wunder, but they don't really care because G2 know they have control over the Baron. And in the event that it gets started, H2k are actually in a much worse position to start that off than G2 are. They're quite confident in their 4v5 ability, and that would allow Wunder to just take himself an inhibitor tower. Now, though, with bot lane pushed up and top lane pushed up, bot and mid pushed up, they're now rotating up towards the top side. They're going to look to pressure onto this tower. There's only one member of H2k, and this should result in another objective going over to G2.
Yeah, zoning Weaver's wall from Jankos means they will be able to take out the tower, and with it they go to a 10,000 gold lead. Vedius, very convincing performance here from G2. H2k trying to make a pick, they'll find one. It's Jankos. He will be the one to fall for G2. The chase is still on here. Arrow only connects onto the backline. Smittyj can rejoin the fight, of course, with the unstoppable force. PerkZ trying to flank, but Hjärnan is pulled back. PerkZ gets onto Smittyj, but that's not the target you want. Has to jump across the wall, and H2k have found some semblance of hope in this game.
Now, the jungler is dead for G2. Hjärnan does have teleport, but Caedrel is alive and well. The Baron can be started off here for H2k, but what will they lose as Wunder breaks into their base?
PerkZ has gone all the way back to base as well. Baron should go to H2k here, unless Wadid can do some sort of magical steal. PerkZ on his way. Wunder taking down the inhibitor in the mid lane, so at least that will go to G2. PerkZ probably not going to be able to get in range for this steal. 4,000 HP left on that Baron. Here comes PerkZ. Wadid there as well. 2,000 HP. PerkZ, can you be the man? Can you be the idol for your team? Does not want to go in for the fight. H2k get the Baron. Wunder still has the flank here. Needs to build up some more rage. PerkZ onto the backline. Smittyj is the one he catches out now. Wunder running for the hills up towards the top side of this jungle. H2k should just reset here. They do not want to take this fight at all. G2 are running them down.
Yeah, no Ashe arrow means that G2 can't really engage, and PerkZ, as you said, just out of range means that he can't quite land the CC needed to punish this Baron picked up for H2k. But this is a big win for them. They are still at a big gold deficit, but the Baron buff will provide you an opportunity to stall out. The carries from H2k are still farming up quite nicely. Larssen level 16, third item completed. Level 14 for Sheriff, but his third item is done as well. And all you really need from Malphite is his ulti. So even though he's behind, even though he is a level down on Wunder, that ulti, as long as it lands, the carries are in a position to follow up. And really, this was a big misplay from G2 because the control ward goes down. They do not have vision in this area. They don't know what anyone else on the side of H2k is aside from Larssen, and they end up just walking straight into that trap. So big misstep there from the side of Jankos results in 2 quick kills going over in H2k, and they turn it into a Baron.
PerkZ can only ever get onto Smittyj as well, who's got an adaptive helm for himself, so is a little bit more tanky in terms of magic resist. H2k, 30 minutes in, they get their first tower of the game and the crowd erupts. H2k fans in the building, Vedius.
Big win up there for H2k. The gold gap continues to close. I believe that's about 7.5 now in favor of G2 from the 10 that was earlier on. But again, look at Wunder down the bottom lane, continuing to keep the pressure up. 2 teleports are available on H2k, but no one is being sent to deal with him. While Smittyj is here, PerkZ is going to try and shut him down to stop him getting back to his beloved bot lane. This is just giving Wunder all the freedom to split push.
2 towers though. 2 towers now for H2k. Promisq's dead, but they've got 2 towers, and that's the important thing for H2k here. Smittyj, oh, he goes in with the unstoppable force. PerkZ dodges away from it, and now Smittyj is not in the best of spots to chase. Larssen looking for a flank here, can't quite connect. Wunder still pushing in the bottom lane. Look at this from Smittyj, he's forcing PerkZ away. Could have gone for the flash into the Q, which is cool.
Doesn't matter.
Seismic shove.
Because it doesn't matter,
but it doesn't do it.
Look, Jankos now coming in from the flank. Smittyj does have flash. Jankos just respecting the Baron at minions.
Flash kill PerkZ. Flash kill PerkZ. You have to do it, Smittyj, now. You're not in a good spot. Seismic shove for the extra movement speed. Chasing onto PerkZ is the Weaver's Wall as well. Smittyj gets to the right side of it, but Jankos is going to try and force him away. Oh, PerkZ dodging. Smittyj, too good. Jankos has no mana, but PerkZ has the chains, and those will send Smittyj to the ether!
Oh! PerkZ gets the kill. Ignite used, flash also used, and it wasn't enough. And yes, it all looked good. H2k, they got themselves 2 towers, but they also lost an inhibitor tower down in the bottom lane. The gold gap now extends back to just under 10,000. And H2k, what looked admirable, what looked good, ends up still working out in favor of G2.
Vedius, Quickshot just left the caster desk, but I have a tiny quick stat for you.
Go on.
This game, we've had 2 Mountain Drakes. Guess which is the only Drake H2k have never got in their games this split.
It's a Mountain Drake.
It's a Mountain Drake. There you are. Great stat for you.
Wow, wonderful.
0 Mountain Drakes this split.
The least useful stat I've ever heard. Congratulations, Medic. You have won that award.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
H2k still able to defend for the moment, though. It is Notion Drake up for the next, which they have got. Guess how many of?
I don't know.
They have 2.
I don't care.
50% Ocean Drake ratio in their games.
Instead, let's focus on this Baron. G2 going to start grouping up now. This could be the opportunity that H2k are looking for. Can they find that big wombo combo team fight?
All of the ultimates are available. Watch Smittyj. He's the initiation. He's the man that has to start this fight for H2k. The inhibitor down now, and H2k back off towards their Nexus towers. Jankos a little bit overextended. Banshee's popped. But with the super minions pushing in the mid lane, G2 will back away and go towards top.
So no is the answer to that. They did not find the fight that they wanted.
Why are you so anticlimactic today?
Well, because that fight was anticlimactic.
Larssen's facing against his idol.
He is.
He's doing well. He's ahead in CS. He is the better player, is what we've worked out.
Oh yeah, let's ignore the 7-1-3 PerkZ right now. It is an unfortunate situation for H2k. As a reminder, as I do believe we have not said it so far, H2k are in fact locked out of playoffs as a result of tiebreakers and the situation that they are currently in. Right now, they are just playing for pride and spoiler, largely, and to claim a little bit of redemption back in this split. I believe at the end of this weekend, they can look to break the all-time losing streak.
I think they tie it, because it would be 0-14, which is what Origin did before.
Right.
So they would tie the all-time losing streak if they went 0-2 this weekend. Of course, there was a lot of pride for Larssen in that mid lane as well, the rookie coming into the team for this week as Selfie is still unwell, and I think overall he's done a pretty good job on this Vladimir.
Well, there's still some room to shine. We'll see if they are able to pull off this team fight as PerkZ continues to be a nuisance in this game. A lot of vision being set up towards the top side of the jungle. G2 perhaps just waiting for the Baron and waiting for Jankos to push that wave in top side.
We did say that Leblanc falls off as you get towards the later game. She is sitting at 4 items at the moment, building up towards her 5th. But at some point, you have to think that the amount of magic resist, the amount of health on H2k will be too much for PerkZ.
So I think it's important to recognize that she falls off late game in team fights.
Okay.
Because it becomes very hard to pull off when people are grouped up as 5. Finding that target to chunk out becomes a lot more risky. But when the map is spread out like this, and PerkZ has 4 items, and he jumps onto a single target, it's that is not weak damage. He can still like he can take half of Smittyj's health, who is a late game tank. So it's important to note those distinctions because PerkZ is still relevant, assuming that they can keep H2k split apart.
He's helping pull H2k around the map as well. Inhibitor down in the mid lane. PerkZ jumps in towards Caedrel, but takes a collateral damage to the face. He's having to run away from this. Caedrel flashes in, and PerkZ is down. No damage he can do now, as H2k can look for the chase. All they need is Smittyj to engage, but somehow G2 still able to retreat. Larssen continues this chase.
So this is a crucial pick for H2k because Baron spawns in 20 seconds.
Oh, Larssen flashes in onto Hjärnan, but the block on the Hemo Plague. There it comes out. Hjärnan pulled back. H2k forcing the fight in a 4v3 at the moment. Sheriff's onto the backline as well. Jankos has to flash away. Wunder in the midst of them all, trying to build up that Mega Gnar. He gets one. Goes golden as the unstoppable force comes out. Flashes the wall. Gets towards Mega. Looking for the Gnar into the wall. He's going to hit it only onto one as Larssen gets into the Sanguine Pool just in time. Cannot quite take Sheriff. He survives, and Caedrel gets the chase onto Jankos here as well. No red buff on Caedrel, so he won't be able to slow Jankos, and Jankos will use the passive to get away.
Medic, throw your mind back to Spring Split. G2 versus H2k. It was PerkZ who gave away his life in a late game team fight against H2k that allowed them to find that big fight, turn it into a Baron, and come back into that game. This could be history repeating itself, as it was PerkZ who died and H2k secured themselves their second Baron of the game.
This is the moment for PerkZ to prove he belongs amongst the best EU mid lane.
Oh my god!
G2 PerkZ steals the Baron!
I cannot believe he stole that Baron!
I never doubted him for a second.
Wait, I've got to check how much damage that did.
A lot, Vedius. He, in these team fight situations, doesn't do that much damage. But when you only have to pick off a Baron, it does lots of damage.
So it can do up to around 900 to 1,000 damage. But that's against no resistances. So he's doing like, he had effectively like an 800 damage smite there with his ulti. Unbelievable. Well played to PerkZ. Steals away the Baron. Now G2 back in full control.
Gonna have another look at that Baron steal. This replay is brought to you by Acer Predator and by PerkZ.
Let's get the slow-mo in, boys.
Here we go.
How much health are we on? So note that the smite now is available.
Here we are, it's up.
Drops down to about 1,800 HP. 500 damage. Oof. So just one extra hit came in from the side of H2k.
Caedrel had smite.
Yeah,
could have smoten it.
I mean, yeah, what, level 16, level 17, 950 damage, I guess because it dropped to about 950 HP, didn't feel confident.
He was waiting for that one extra shot, which came in, and then PerkZ, boom.
Yep. Whoa, good stuff there from PerkZ. After messing up earlier on, is able to redeem himself. And now the siege begins. H2k, though, they've got a lot of items under their belt now. This late-game teamfight power does exist. And last split, that is when H2k found a lot of success in their late-game team fighting. So we'll see if they can pull it off against G2, see if they can cause the upset once again.
Was the inhibitor going down in the bottom lane to Wunder in that split push. 3 members of G2 up towards this top side. Ammo was just used by Hjärnan as the fight continues to push in. Smittyj does have ultimate if he wants to jump in, but PerkZ and Wunder have the flank now. Wunder building up that rage bar once again. Looking for the Mega Gnar. One Nexus tower down. It's the slow grind for G2 here. All they need to do is use this Baron to push in the waves. And H2k will have to force a fight at some point.
G2 just want to play as split up as possible. There's the risk of Hjärnan getting engaged on, but that's where you can see the positioning of Wadid.
Unstoppable force, that's onto 2, but Wunder and PerkZ are on the Nexus, and H2k do not realize it. G2 are gonna sneak the back door in here. Wunder, PerkZ, and Jankos, the triumphant trio, take down the Nexus.
It was all part of the plan. The bait was laid up towards the top lane. Hjärnan and Wadid saying, engage, engage. And PerkZ and Wunder immediately took that opportunity to run towards the Nexus and secure the win. A little bit shaky. We talked about how for G2, you wanted to look confident, you wanted to look clean coming into your game against Fnatic. And for the vast majority of this game, it was that. But a couple of individual missteps. Jankos is level 1. The face check into H2k's jungle, giving away that Baron to H2k. The late game where PerkZ ends up getting caught out. Not what could have been massive didn't result in massive deficits, but small individual misplays there from G2. A lot of what we saw last week in their game versus Schalke, and they're going to need to be on top form going into their game versus Fnatic tomorrow.
Big game for them tomorrow. H2k, on the other hand, will be a little bit disheartened after they could have got that Baron, probably should have secured that Baron, and PerkZ was just able to steal it away in the last moment. Felt like they'd fought back, felt like they'd stabilized to a degree with this teamfight composition, but unable to find that final spark of magic that they needed to close out the game.
Yeah, credit to Larssen, 3-1-4, most gold on his team. He had a solid performance, difficult to show a lot when PerkZ does get a Leblanc and is able to generate that much early pressure, kind of just shut down Caedrel in the jungle. But in the late game, we did see a couple of good ultimates from him. He was able to find a couple picks here and there, and overall for his debut against G2 Esports, I think you can be pleased with his performance.
I think you will be. I mean, I'd look at the damage number, I'd say 11.3 thousand doesn't look that high, but he was never really put in a position where he could output a lot of damage. You're looking for late game flanks, you're looking for those big 5-man team fights. That's where Vlad really shines.
Yeah, and when you're going up against PerkZ, it's kind of challenging to really look amazing, given how prevalent he is, especially on these assassins. And with his LeBlanc, he had a great job. And we talked about that mid lane pressure being used to invade on the enemy jungle. Jankos and PerkZ taking advantage of their synergy as a duo to constantly invade and look for these kills. Larssen, he didn't end up dying. This was in fact his only death of the game, but constant picks onto Caedrel, looking for that jungler, looking for the squishy graves, and he found it time and time again. He ended with a score of 7-2-3. He stole away the Baron from H2k that enabled G2 to close out this game in what could have been a surprising upset if he wasn't able to pull it off.
That's what you do. That's how you carry your team to that top 2, top 3 spot. That's exactly what you need. Individual moments of brilliance from people like PerkZ. Now, for player of the game, we've narrowed it down to PerkZ. Wunder and Wadid as well on the other side. But head on over to LCS Esports on Twitter and vote. No doubt there for me. Any doubt for you?
No, it was a pretty solid performance.
It was pretty
nearly
solid.
through the game, but at the same time, he was able to bring it back.
It's not fun without a little bit of drama. In just a few minutes, it's time for Misfits Gaming versus Giants, a crucial matchup in the race for playoffs and the battle for first place that we've been talking about so much. First, though, let's head over to Laure and G2's Leblanc.
Thank you very much, Smittyj. First win of G2 this week, and you went back to your first love with Leblanc here. But tomorrow, you will have to face Fnatic in match of the week. So how do you think you're going to beat them?
Well, today we had kind of like a really messy game. I think we played really well the first like 20 minutes, but then like we got caught and lost Nash. And then once I ran into enemy Nexus and almost lost Nash. So I think if we play like we do, like we have practiced the last 2 weeks, like we have improved so much compared to like our slump, or however you want to call it after the rivals. I think we can easily beat them, and they're a really good team. So it's not gonna be like, okay, we for sure win, but I think it's easily doable. So,
and yeah. you beat them the last time, but they look to be the strongest team in Europe right now. What do you think makes Fnatic the most powerful team in Europe at the moment?
Well, I think it seems like just they play really well around mid with like Hylissang, Soaz, and Broxeromes, and they have like innovative picks bot that people don't expect. Like they play like I think 10 different champs on people, so there's just a lot of surprise factor and craziness in draft and level ones that gives them advantages. But I think we should be prepared for what they have to like throw at us, and then we can counter it and beat them.
Well, I wish you good luck on this one. We will see that tomorrow. And thank you for joining me today. We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, it's going to be Misfits versus Giants. Don't go anywhere.
Maybe overstepped here because Jankos is on his way down as well. And now G2 will capitalize in the bottom lane. H2k versus G2, and it's G2 who are winning. Larssen getting chased out by Wadid and Hjärnan as well. Gobbled up into the belly. That can't have tasted good. I think right now because PerkZ is playing the Magician and trying to make Promisq disappear. There's Wunder with the Gnar into the wall. Larssen, Hemo playing only on one. Wunder will fall as well, but PerkZ jumps in once again. Caedrel, goodbye my son. Jankos has no mana, but PerkZ has the chains, and those will send Smittyj to the ether!
PerkZ gets the kill.
This is the moment for PerkZ to prove he belongs amongst the best EU mid lane. Oh my god! G2 PerkZ steals the Baron. G2 are going to sneak the back door in here. Wunder, PerkZ and Jankos, the triumphant trio, take down the Nexus.